What is that sense of something missing from your life? How do we find that elusive feeling of purpose that makes us our best self? What difference can we make in each other's lives? Can we change ourselves? I mean, intentionally, can we direct our lives, or do we delude ourselves, controlled by situations? How can we know when we are in denial? How can we face that same feeling we've reacted to the same way all our life and respond a different way? Why do we lie to ourselves? How much suffering is avoidable? We are all tortured by the unknown, the mystery of being human, that deep confusion beneath the surface reasons of why we stay up at night staring at the ceiling, of those strange explosions of emotion beyond our own control, the mysterious roots of our self-loathing and self-deceptions. I've been trying to face this honestly my whole life. So much of the toxicity is around what we don't share with each other, which makes me deeply fed up with seeing the internet filled with echo chambers of attention seekers preying on pain to profit with shallow or even deceptive inspiration. In this video, I'm saying everything I've learned of value. It may come from my insights and failures, of which there were many. And my mental health issues have been a real gift of filtering through what actually works, preventing me from pretending whatever I want to believe is what is which is my first warning. You can believe anything. Believe in a flat earth, believe hope guarantees success, believe you're a failure. It can become reality to you. The gift and the curse of being human. If there are times you need to trust yourself and not resist the voice in your head, and other times you need to resist that voice in your head, how do you know which is which? Above the entrance to the oracle at Delphi, a stone was inscribed with the words, "Know thyself." To understand your fate, you must understand yourself. There is a confusion inherent in being human. If we give into it, we can lose the confidence we need to maintain determination or aspire to ideals. But if we ignore it, we can become trapped in it. Everyone I've ever known, no matter how successful or seemingly stable on the surface, once honest enough, admits this confusion. Art. Art serves many purposes, evokes many feelings, aspires to many intentions. But does it actually make a difference? That's the question I began this with. But to understand art, we need to understand its context, ourselves. So I will answer that question, but not for a long time. First, a more foundational question. Can you be happy? I mean, think about it. Have you ever met someone completely satisfied, someone who does not experience the ups and downs of life? Happiness is a concept. It's a word reaching to describe what is real and changing our perception of what is real by doing it. So what is reality? We can see in each other's how it changes with belief, but in ourselves it seems so real. We have our raw moment-to-moment animal experience and then a layer of conceptual experience that molds life into ideas and ideals. As the ideas and words we use to mold life itself, reality changes with belief, and belief is driven by feelings that change the belief that changes feelings. So we chase ideas like a greyhound after a rabbit, all the more exciting if it's just out of reach because it's not really there. What if happiness is just an idea, a concept that doesn't exist? When I actually look at my life and what I've seen through others, what we get is moments of appreciation. Some are earned satisfactions, yet much of what is described as happiness in actual experience is those rare times our mental BS and stress isn't in the way of enjoying simply being alive. Dr. Mihail Csikszentmihalyi did a 25-year study on happiness when he found out as a student other psychologists were focused only on problems. And he found out what we say makes us happy and when we are happy are different. How crazy is it that we don't even necessarily accurately know what we are feeling when we think about it? It still blows my mind. There were years I was experiencing depression without knowing I was depressed. What he found through clinical testing was that engaged experience, which is why he brought the word flow into scientific literature, and one of the reasons anything that brings us to a state of heightened awareness has meaning. And I will get to what I believe that meaning means. I start here because it's so important to realize we can believe anything. And if it changes the world around us, if something as fundamental as happiness can be altered by our expectations of it, how can we know the possibilities of truth? We get raised by adults who pretend to know what they're doing, become ones who don't. We live in a world that's constantly selling us promises of happiness. We live surrounded by people projecting images of happiness while all struggling mentally and emotionally in their own ways. What if this is it? What if this is it? What if the life you've been living, the one full of inevitable ups and downs, the one where your issues and problems, your core compulsions, the ones that hurt yourself the most, will never go away, will keep coming back? And success isn't overcoming them by making them disappear or removing all the bad from your life outside, but finally facing honestly what's inside. So instead of reacting blindly in the same ways, you can learn to respond through very slow change in different ways than expected. We all yearn for change, to be more. Here are some truths about change. It is slow. It comes through persistent repetition. The pain of awareness is its most powerful tool. But it's not the epiphany that makes the change, the realization. It's continuing to notice the pattern at the times it is most painful, through many painful repetitions, without turning away. In the moment you're making the mistake again, until you have enough awareness to pause and respond differently to that same old feeling that has always felt like there is only one choice of reaction. Then you may build a new habit, but that pause, the mental stilling amidst the storm, is the most essential undervalued muscle, because that's where the door opens to other possibilities. Your problems still come, but through repeated awareness, instead of reacting blind, we can consciously respond. As my phenomenal therapist told me on our first day, I'm not going to make your problems go away. What you have in your head will keep coming up. You can learn new ways of responding, and that growth has been so immensely fulfilling. It also makes me look back on the past and wonder what could have been different if I had faced this truth sooner. Suffering is inescapable, but I see now there is a sacred suffering, the pain where growth lives. So we must now ask a harder question. What of our suffering is unnecessary? If you think about it, staying away from the blame and shame game of what is self-inflicted, because that doesn't mean it's your fault, just what is actually unnecessary? This question will be different for everyone. There is no science of the soul. There's no control group. You are your own experiment. In the sweet symmetry of contradiction, the burden of answering it yourself is impossible. Perspectives are infinite. Real truth is full of contradiction. And the weight of the darkest question, what is wrong with me, will make your mind warp its sight away from truth like a cornered animal, without you even knowing. You can never know when you're in denial. Think about that. You don't know what you don't know. You can't know what you don't want to know. And when that's happening, you won't know. In my experience, all we are told is supposed to make us feel good pales in comparison to two things. Knowing you're giving something worthwhile to the ones you love, and facing and dealing with your flaws, overcoming yourself. All overcoming. This struggle against the self is hard. It hurts worse than anything. So many turn away and get stumped in the potential new branches they could grow out into, stuck in a false sense of safety, and what it takes to decide it's worth it is elusive. What I have seen is purpose. Not as an idea, the kind that can be said in words, but the experience of purpose. That feeling, the thing the word reaches to describe. With it, you can power through the worst pain, and without it, a seemingly perfect life can feel empty. It's like the skeleton key to the human psyche, that we are tribal creatures that want to feel we are doing something worthwhile for the tribe, for our world. And look at the world we live in. Look at the scale of problems, the quantity that hit our awareness in a day. Look at people all over obsessed that there has to be a bad guy so they can be the good guy, going to war and refusing to find common ground over this inherited narrative illusion. If you look at the emptiness and helplessness we all feel, after hundreds of thousands of years in small groups and now in 9 billion across disparate cultures, when to our credit, if we try to view this as one tribe and care for it all, we look at the war in Ukraine or Syrian refugees or Uyghur Muslims, child labor and sex trafficked slaves, Gaza. What purpose can you possibly have that's of any value? What life can feel good enough? I've struggled with that question for so long, and it's shown me that everyone is, whether consciously or unconsciously, dealing with that feeling. It's the overwhelmed feeling that makes us distract ourselves. It's tied up in the yearning that makes us reach for our phone, hate our work, be addicted to and resent the news, feel empty. When you look at people obsessing over control of the small things around them, from their Starbucks order to their work lives, there's a reality at play deep down that we know we don't fully control what is inside us. And what is more terrifying than knowing you don't control what happens inside you? So that hope to control the outside in order to control those feelings is escapist, a denial of another contradictory truth. We can never fully control that world inside us, yet we must learn to control that world inside us. Truth is full of contradictions. We're so obsessed with control, we even try to control the truth to make it make sense. The truth doesn't always make sense. Pro tip: if you're ever not sure which thing causes something, check if it's all the things you think cause it working together. We always seek simple cause and effect answers when life is this intertwined web of causality changing through time, and we tend to lose our minds in those gray areas of control. Humans are great with what we know we cannot control, the movement of the sun. Great with what we know we can control, schedule a haircut, and go insane over what we're not sure if we can control. Does anyone else really like my haircut? In that in-between place is where the mind gets slippery and changes reality before you even see it, which led to my most useful contradictory thought. You can't change what you don't accept. The mind is so powerful, it creates the world you experience. And the brain is a machine designed to protect you. So where you are hurting yourself, where it will always hurt most, to see the ways you hurt yourself again and again, the easiest defense is always going to be to simply not see it. The mind can hide your own feelings, actions, react away, make blind spots in the story of what is happening and why, provoke reactions to forever hide a feeling. So if what you are trying to change about yourself is hidden by yourself, how can you change? Unless you struggle through your own feelings, struggle with yourself for truth, the brain warps reality, always away from uncertainty. The brain will cause any pain, self-loathing, self-destruction over uncertainty, protecting you, but hurting you worse by doing it. So when you need to change, the hardest kind of change, right at the point of denial, the only way to change is to first accept what is really happening. If you face the problem over and over again and nothing seems to work, there's probably something you're not seeing. Usually right on the other side of the feeling you most don't want to feel. If you don't accept what you don't want to see, believe, or face, you'll always be fighting the wrong fight. This even applies externally. You can't truly win a war until you accept what the enemy is trying to do, look at who they are, almost with empathy. So it is with your enemies within. You can't change what you don't accept. This acceptance is not complacency. It's not giving up. It's a fierce determination to face the truth. The part of the truth that's most distasteful or painful. It's a first harsh step for clarity. What's missing in you may be tied to what you are avoiding. Wherever the urge to avoid lives, just past that, through facing helplessness or uncertainty or the part of the truth or your identity you don't want to believe, knowing you can get through it, you can perceive and face the real problem. Then, after acceptance, change can begin. My problem was not feeling good enough. It's a universal problem. It seems fundamental to the human experience, but can become toxic and can disguise itself. My dream in life is to help people change for the better with truth, with storytelling. It made me face some hard questions. How do we change? Can we really change consciously, or do we delude ourselves? What can a story do? Do I have anything of value to give the world? The first story I tried to write involved a child lost in the wilderness, raised without human contact, like in many of the old myths. And at a certain point, I decided to research this. What really happens? Really try to answer this question as you listen. Imagine if you were raised on a desert island, magically have food and water, but have never met another person. How much of you do you think would be you? Picture that human walking into the room right now. What's different from who you are now? For years I've been asking this, asking people who they think they would be without having met other people. And I've heard the full range of responses. Pretty much the same, different but the same personality, unrecognizable. There is an answer, and the truth is this. You would be feral. The people who this has happened to are often tragic cases of forced isolation. They don't behave like what we think of as human, and some glimpses imply without language they do not have memory as we understand it, implying they don't experience the world the way we do. Some who do learn to speak, like Isabella, begin interacting like others with astonishing speed. The story that changed my life the most came from the Radiolab podcast Words episode. Exactly at that time, I was deeply questioning if stories had any real impact or if I was kidding myself. I'd spent my college years comparing the mystics and poets and great thinkers, questioning the mind across cultures and times, and found the great truths of self-realization have been written again and again for those willing to seek them out. Yet how do you not preach to the choir and use mass media to get these ideas to people who may most need them? Can you weave them into entertainment for someone not seeking deeper answers, provoke questions, or reach those who've never had support and might find it in stories? And here I am at my first job in LA at a copy machine at a production company scanning commercial budgets 8 hours a day facing a window of a palm tree in a parking lot with a hidden earphone listening to podcasts. And I heard this story. I strongly urge you to listen to the full original as it weaves many related ideas together in a beautiful way. A 27-year-old deaf man was non-communicative. She tried to teach him sign language, yet he would merely imitate the signs. She spent weeks making no progress whatsoever, and then suddenly saw this immense light bulb moment. She starts pointing at things around the room and realizes there are names for things. Deaf since birth, he'd never heard there were sounds with the motion of lips, and others had been describing the words around him, the world around him. And all the inexplicable behavior all his life he'd been passively witnessing suddenly made sense. Imagine never having heard the stories and thoughts and feelings of others. Add in the evidence, listen to Radiolab's words, language and even differing sophistications of language and describing inner worlds enables us to experience and perceive the world differently. Imagine monkeys who began describing the world to each other, sharing learning generation to generation. Before stories, even if I've seen death, do I know my own death is certain? When I hear you describe seeing me, I get my idea of me. When I hear what you feel, I discover I am not alone. I wonder what I am and can be by seeing through the eyes of others. All of what we think of as being human. What does the sharing of experience bring to our lives? A single sentence, one thought shared with another may not seem important. One story may not seem to make much of a difference. But if you take them all away, every story, every idea, every experience shared with you, or you've seen another go through, every book you've read, every article, every word spoken or read on every screen, every movie, everything taught in school, every bit of gossip, every interaction, everything your parents told you, every word, take it all away. What are you left with? So each story, each communication, it adds a thread in this immense tapestry that defines us. A thread may not seem like much, but it's how they all tie together. When you look at children, as much as you might tell them how to live, instruct them what to do they listen? Sometimes. But what they definitely do is model what they see, imitate, effortlessly, invisibly, even to the tragically illogical point that the abused are more likely to become abusers. It shows how, whatever we see, we become. What we experience through each other, we share in, we become. At every funeral, I have the same experience. The loss is irreparable. No explanation can heal the wound or makes me feel better. Then every time I start to get this sense of that part of the person that still is me, what they added to my life. And I look around the room and see all these people who also have a part of them connected to that person. I don't think the human obsession with the afterlife is just about fear of death. I've met devout Christians who talk about reincarnation and karma like it has some inherent sense of truth beyond dogmatic religious meaning. And when you think about it, it is true, practically. We don't just disappear. There's a river of humanity that you came out of. You are a unique, fluid amalgamation, picking up behaviors, both from genetics and from influence of the sense of humor of your grandparents or rules of your home or rule breaking of your teenage friends. Your heroes, even the fictional ones, your dreams, your fantasies, formed by the dreams and lives of others. Those we are closest to have immense influence on the way we behave. And even a brief encounter or a media clip of an individual, you may soak up something new, a presence, a way of being. And each one of those people has been picking up countless bits of human behavior and inspiration from everyone they've met and spent time with and cared for. In the same way, you give through unconscious osmosis to everyone you interact with. So when you go away, bits of yourself have been left in everyone you love and know. You have participated in the flow of that water to those around you, your communities, shared ways of being, believing, and behaving, the meaning of choices. Through direct communication, but also implicitly, simply in the act of presence, of living with each other. It doesn't work the way we want, this afterlife. If you make some new joke or turn a phrase and it gets repeated 200 years from now, no one says your name. If an idea I say here, born from many others I've heard, is repeated or rephrased, I won't be part of it. What you are is a completely unique, unrepeatable combination of sources from this river, a melding amalgamation in motion, choosing what has meaning and value, pruning what stays and what goes as you learn to live with the way of living you've been given, as you evolve your approach to life, adapt and grow, and share this with others around you. You didn't come from nowhere, and your existence is not without purpose. That's a huge claim and relates to the sense I mentioned of deeper underlying purpose, separate from the tangible conceptual ones that can be spoken of yet have less foundation. I heard a beautiful description of life. The second law of thermodynamics is entropy, dissolution into chaos. So the fact that life as we know it, perpetuating itself, even exists, first through the replication of cells and then through reproduction through sex. Life defies the laws of physics. It is by definition a miracle. And that miracle is best described as a tendency towards growth, experienced as a desire for love, sexually and in support of other living things. And I believe that drive towards growth is our deepest need. Curiosity, the fulfillment of overcoming something, even our absurd human need to always do more or agree to be more. We are the universe expressing itself, not separate from nature, but nature experimenting with possibilities, each a unique human experiment. And it's not purposeful in a human causal way. There is no meaning to life with a point, but there is meaning in what meaning we find, what meaning we choose, what meaning we create. Completely yours to discover. And only you can know what is working for you and how you are growing, learning from your mistakes and learning from others. Anything you do that lets you grow or experience connection or feel alive, as life is growth, feeling alive. It has purpose in the unknowable scheme of creation. What if there is no value judgment, even without Nietzsche's eternal recurrence? If one moment of you picking your fingernails is a magnificent enough expression of the purpose of creation, that it is important and good enough, without qualification. And what if the qualification in your gift of consciousness, of choosing what has meaning to you, is even more of a profound expression of life's growth? When we feel our lives are mere repetition, the same daily routine without choice, pointless work, we wither like a flower without water. This is always an illusion. I know because I lived in that illusion. The kind of severe depression where you don't feel joy from things you have always felt joy from. Where you more than just don't believe in a better future, you lose the ability to even see the future. And it's not real. I was growing that whole time. I was just so down on myself about my expectations for what my life should be that I not only lost what my life could be, I was even cut off from the truth of what my life was. I can look back and see how I was growing the whole time. And I still have to force myself to be honest about that. And I'll say my biggest piece of personal advice now. You can believe anything, and it will usually seem right because what you believe will change what you see. There is no overseer that will step down and correct you that you're lying to yourself. You won't just magically feel the truth. You have to work through the pain that helps you illuminate yourself. Struggle to experience the truth. Clarity takes work. The more you can deal with what really is, the stronger you will be. The more you can reach towards and prioritize truth, the hard truths of what's going on, the more you can grow. We can look at life as an attempt for our consciousness to grow in more and more harmony with the truth of ourselves, of each other, of nature. This growth matters. It doesn't need any proof or consequence. I know that even for all the things I was told would make me happy, all promises of success and seductions of pleasure, it's those underlying personal things that I've overcome that have led to the most fulfillment. They've been tied to the worst torture, yet there is that sacred suffering necessary to them that is the growth. Sadly, you can suffer with your problems in an unconstructive way that approaches the truth but turns away, back into whatever feels safe, again and again and again. Or you can do it in a way that moves through the discomfort of fear or the stress of trauma and use that sacred suffering as a tool towards truth. In this sense, where truth is growth, it's all tied together. What you're missing may be tied to what you're avoiding. Habits may deceive you into thinking the past is the only way life can be. Desires can disguise the fear of avoidance. The key to the hidden door may be found where you least expect it. So now we get to the reason I'm saying all this. How do you know? I have ignored my clearest thoughts and strongest desires, and other times listened to self-destructive thoughts or followed desires I needed to ignore. If you can't know when you're lying to yourself, how can you learn? There's this overwhelming responsibility we in the 21st century feel where we can see infinite possibilities all around us. Unlike a medieval blacksmith's apprentice who knew his path and had no choices about it, we have the opposite problem, the illusion of infinite choices while still so often helpless. But if you're willing to trust a psychologist who tested his theories while in a concentration camp of the Holocaust, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. We are never completely free, and there is a kind of freedom within that can never be completely taken away. This responsibility to choose what is meaningful to you is in conflict with the reality that when you are the source of one of your problems, always the most painful ones, you can't rely on yourself alone to deal with you. It's on you to deal with your problems, but you can't solve your problems alone in your head. You have to find them in life. And since you come from others, from this river of humanity, even your own problems are not really your own fault. And you're never alone in your urges to deal with yourself. All self-reflection is actually reflection through the insights of experience with the hidden wisdom of others that is within us. In the middle of writing these thoughts, I had a casual conversation with someone who described Indra's net, the fishing net thrown over all creation, and every knot of the net has a jewel reflecting every other jewel at every other knot. Interdependence. And it gave me the image of the neurons in my brain and his brain, while talking, shifting with each other's words into new interrelated patterns. This is art. Even mindless entertainment is founded on seeing new experiences, feeling the possibility of new feelings, or revisiting familiar ones in a new context, new ways of dreaming, engaging with the relatable experiences of others. Art has many meanings, infinite possible purposes, but its inspiration reaches down into our most fragile and essential foundation. We cannot always sense our growth. The river is only perceived in glimpses. We will never get to see all reflections in all the nets, through all the eyes, through all time. What is art? Art is a reminder that we are all engaged in the most important and universal art form, the art of becoming. You are an artist and a work of art, a unique human creation. When you see Freddie Mercury on stage belting out Bohemian Rhapsody at Live Aid, the crowd doesn't just perceive it detached. Oh, good for him, he sings very singingly. when he does the Freddy, there's a sharing, a participation in anyone else's triumph, a sense of, wow, what can a human be? What can I do? Art speaks to us because our possibilities are limitless, in truthful contradiction with the realities of our limitations. The gift and burden of being human, being illuminated through reflections. You are forming yourself across time. At a modern museum, the most common things you will overhear are some version of, like this, and that's not art. It is a process of selecting what is meaningful to us. Each of us, what connects within, what feels real, resonates. As we seek out and challenge our own ideas of truth and beauty in our own lives, reminded to not just wait for answers, but make them. Make questions. So there is an inspiration in garbage in a museum to see there are no rules to what may work. Inspiration in seeing someone similar to you express themselves, and inspiration in someone of drastically different values or background express themselves. This is a very similar process to inner self-reflection, to discovering what might have value, to having the same feeling and responding in a different way, exploring possibilities within limitations. What is art? Tolstoy's essay on that question has a central moment where he asserts it is everything humans make. He points at when you get tea from a Russian samovar, you know, even across the world, I am touching Russia, doing something Russian. For a Russian, you are touching a part of yourself. For an outsider, you're touching a sense of another world. And if you buy a teapot for your house and choose a Japanese or English one, or make your own, you are representing yourself, what you choose to be tied to in the river of humanity. In this definition, it is also a transmission or reminder of culture, and books like his and everything since Don Quixote often sneakily finds ways to use the familiar to expand empathy or conceptual definitions of the purpose and causes of war, or whether only a crazy person should believe all that is in books. That idea of expanding the concept of art beyond what art is was revolutionary in the 19th century, at a time when art was predominantly seen as paintings on church or palace walls, and also borders on comical that he at great length deconstructs that no one even knows what beauty means, only to declare he knows what beauty and art means. What if the whole point of art's definition is that it's fluid, meant to change with time, tracing cultural evolution, that it is an altering even of our internal definition of what beauty is, of what is acceptable or possible, of our relationship with our own feelings, which used to be, even back when art was really just to further validate a unified collective religious feeling. At minimum, this was contained as exclusively the job of specialized artists who only certain special works could gain enough widespread or specialist approval to be declared officially art. When we look at art that began to challenge definitions of itself and the explosion of possibility of 20th century art, now we look at its democratization. Art everywhere. Where will this fluid movement of what art is go now? In an era where photographers are not just specialized people with expensive equipment, but everyone with a phone. Which photographs are art and which aren't? No one can tell us anymore what has a value. And even an unliked photo is slipped into the memory banks and may have meaning to someone in time. How can anyone know what may have meaning in the future? Can you really know what may have meaning to you? We don't know our own inner workings, what may cause purpose or joy, or why we want what we want, or how we can change the possibilities of what we may become. And art expresses this infinite mystery of possibility in how we don't see how it may change the blueprints within. Neil Young says the same song is different every time you hear it or sing it. It enables you to revisit an old place within as a new you, bringing new experience with it. Stephen King says writing is telepathy. Ansel Adams quotes Stieglitz. Art is an affirmation of life. Whatever you choose to do, whatever you cultivate conscious care of, the culinary craft, to toy with conversation, master a sport, internet gifts or dancers or athletes surpassing assumed boundaries are definitively art in this definition, even cats. You always awaken that spirit of knowing that what you do matters. What you are matters for no outside reason. Your growth is important. It doesn't need to have a clear consequence. If it expands your soul, if it moves you, this is important. Yet only you can choose to give it that importance. Your own choice to care about your growth is important not just to you, but to those around you. We all know there is that nihilistic sense of pointlessness, of, well, if no one else is going to be kind, why should I? That lurks at the root of many of the worst feelings between us. Some of the worst things people do. And I say, that. You can choose to look at only the darkness and become a part of it, or choose to create light. So, we need reminders. We all know the value of it when we see it around us, especially at some seemingly insignificant times, that someone is there for us in a time of need. A kind word, a relatable story. Someone holding a door open on a bad day. We feel connected and awakened within, clear and strong, human. Tribal creatures for so many thousands of years that now are faced with an immense, overwhelming world. We were raised on movies that focus on the one who will save the whole world, messaging that that's all that can matter, as if that's the only way to change the world. When you speak to someone you love, your words are their world. In that moment, you shift their brain chemistry. Looking at all human history, think of humans without speech. Conversation is the most culturally consequential art form. Like oxygen, its ever-presence eclipses its importance. But if you were to make the most famous work of art or beloved movie or write a perfect song, it would still not have as much impact on your loved ones as what you may say to them through your lifetime. Often not even what you say, but the way you say it. When you make something with love, whether food, a letter, or a Facebook post, it has a different potential. Do not ignore the wider world, but actively reject this idea that nothing you do matters if the world is still in chaos, unfixed and unfixable. Life is chaos, and any order we find and make in it is a gift. As Stanley Kubrick said, the most terrifying fact about the universe is not that it is hostile, but that it is indifferent. However vast the darkness, we supply our own light. And don't forget that no action is in isolation. Our behavior is contagious in all directions. So as the great Danko said, focus on your community. You're probably a part of more communities than you realize. Overt as your family, your school, maybe half ignored like bonds with your coworkers, or as secret coalitions like lovers of funk music or needlepoint, or classic cars or hip-hop poetry or comedy gifts, or the invisible coalition of those who choose to comfort strangers, or only buy products ethically. Everyone around the world who volunteers doing what you do. And forget this preposterous idea that things only matter if you might be special or great or the best at something. Those greatest singers inspire us that songs can matter. And it doesn't mean you shouldn't sing. It means you should sing more if it matters to you. The choice of what can matter to you matters. The choice that the way you do any action is yours. To choose your values and live a life aligned with those values is a far more reasonable and sustainably achievable definition of what we try to refer to with words like happiness. And this kind of fundamental art I refer to, the art of becoming, can be activated all around and within you. Curators are artists, and we are all curators of our own media. What songs we listen to and what movies and shows we watch, what we read. We don't even need to understand what it is they do to us. But when you allow yourself to feel that your feelings about it matter, you can curate more caringly. You're not just curating for others, you're curating your own lens of life across a lifetime. You are navigating the river of humanity, whether to wander the interconnected imagination of fantasy authors or watch documentaries. Whatever it is, do it intentionally and it has more meaning. Share. A mixtape given to a friend, a lover, a stranger can have more meaning than the radio to that person. A passionate film recommendation opens eyes and conversations, maybe contagiously. That curation of what matters to you moves the river. It is art. This continuous, fluid cultural interchange is a huge part of who we are, how we grow. And even if you never say a word of what you watch changes what you will see. Having worked in film development, I assure you, what you watch and what you buy matters. The more you engage with something, the more of it the industry will make. And that was before the algorithms surrounding you were watching everything you do and feeding more of it, both to you and others. Watching is a creative act. Audiences are part of the art. Audiences are the art. The future of how we express and communicate is constantly changing. As we enter the era of AI, arts that were previously only accessible to those with specialized skills will be in the hands of anyone. An oversaturated media landscape will be even more saturated. The AI itself will be even creating endlessly. This makes the active decision of what matters to you, what you find meaning and beauty in, what you share and support, more meaningful than ever. If you have a friend who's a painter and now surrounded by these AI paintings in their style, but you particularly love their work and growth, that love matters. Engage in that conversation. Everything is in conversation. Process. Look at the overlap between therapy and the act of sharing stories. In both, what we are doing is using others to reach more realistically at what is really happening and what is possible in us as humans. In my lifetime, I've seen both evolve away from the delusion that humans are meant to reach some unattainable perfection, from therapy as something shameful just for people with problems, to the acceptance that all people have problems, and it's helpful and even enjoyable to face them and grow, in tandem with stories evolving away from stories where there's good guys and bad guys and you just need to kill the bad guys and then everything will be good. Look around at the unconscious damage this has caused in our attempts to find a way to be heroic by finding an enemy, and this good guy was just an efficient way to validate a populace tricked into dying in pointless wars that benefited the rich. Now stories all around me appear to be evolving towards more nuanced and complex evaluations of the personal and sociological problems, even in what we call mindless entertainment. I'm not saying you need to sit there watching TV going, I'm making my life better, this is special and important. I'm saying that whether you know it or not, all around you, our brains, all this immensely complex, insanely powerful connective tissue, which I heard on the internet, may have more neurons in it than stars in the universe. All the things you do may have meaning, and they have more meaning when you believe you and your experiences and your shared experiences through others are inherently meaningful, not value dependent on anything, with nothing you need to prove to show you are beautiful, worthy as every human without exception. This is a choice you can make, that you have to make because it's hard to fight those darkest feelings. But you have the power to spark your own conscious awakening. Even when you don't have choices, when you're stuck in your work commute or at work itself, to find the play in it, the art, the way you do things, the approach that there may be more possibilities than are apparent based on your past, the attitude that your feelings are not the whole truth, the awareness that there is not some other better life out there you are missing out on, but you get this one, and this is as it is, and when you deal with it honestly, your potential opens further. This makes a difference, immeasurable difference, imperceptible and immensely important. On the most personal level I can share about change and growth, the struggle art is reminding us to engage in. Challenge your own self-image. Disprove yourself. Don't get caught in who you think you are, or what you are, or fear of who you might be. Dream your way into life, without being attached to the dream, but open to whatever may come. And instead of the ideas, the concepts of what you need to do or be, focus on moments. Moments when you feel you are trapped, and you can use the habit you build to pause. Then, when you most feel you can't have control, and maybe you won't, but you can make a slight difference in direction, the choice to move your mind in the direction you choose, and then, even imperfectly, even without clear consequence, that choice to move your mind in a conscious direction, it matters in the spiritual sense of sensing that you are choosing your own growth matters. And then who knows? Reach out. That's the point. Only you can make the choice to make change, but to get out of your loops, you need to get outside yourself, beyond the feelings that feel too much. Remember to remind yourself you can handle anything. You may need to stumble to find your footing, and you will definitely need to fail to learn. At my bleakest when I wondered if no one really changes on purpose at all, if we're just pinballing around pretending we're in control. Well, even then, that means circumstances change us, so you can change your circumstances. Travel in the mind through the minds of others through art. There's something out there yearning to say. There's someone out there yearning to say what you may be needing to hear. I said in the beginning, I've tried to test all these beliefs in my actual life and know the desire to change can lead to an intense dissatisfaction of not changing enough, of not being enough. We do not reach some point of perfection or approach total control. I want to be as clear as possible that this is not easy. This is why art is such a valuable tool to give us new perspectives, to re-inspire us, to shatter each illusion that we are stuck. Let me be even clearer about the harsh realities that keep us from doing this, that make simple platitudes of inspiration misleading. We don't succeed. The Jungian model of growth is like chasing a point that is our sense of identity, our ideal self, and we keep missing it and going circles around it, in orbit, but learning with each cycle. We never stop yearning. If we accept that, we can reach more passionately, more honestly. It is the byproduct of our need for growth, a greed to always go further, that directed outward can become addictively empty shells, and directed inward becomes a continuing pain at reaching further. Everyone hates a hypocrite, but to reach for an ideal means to try to go further than realistic limits, which do exist. So it means failing. It means saying you can do more than you can do in the hope of getting there. A cycling balancing act. Thus, to be an idealist means to be a hypocrite, which hurts. Yet it only leads to self-loathing if you don't accept this impossible game with a sense of humor or with an artist's determination. I feel this is an age calling for the realistic idealist, the idealistic realists. And I see it increasingly in the tone of art and stories all around me. The world is too big to be in a goal-oriented mindset, and this process of growth is too big for a goal-oriented mindset because we cannot perceive all these processes within us, all the imperceptible consequences. The modern Western mind distorts every ancient Eastern concept, from nirvana to ikigai, to be about the goal of the process instead of the process itself. This inhibits the possibilities of the process. Any action itself is important because it's your life, your growth. You don't need any proof to be good enough, to be significant. If you try to fully validate the self, to be free of the strain of yearning to be more, you either go numb from the conflict with the truth that you can never get there, or you get trapped in stubborn self-torture. You will never get enough because that feeling, that story that creates and perpetuates it, has no inherent truth. It's just a system of feelings, state and story. The deeper truth is that when you stand on a mountaintop and stare into an unseeable horizon, when you look at the countless stars above, all that inconceivable majesty, in all that infinite space, it is you who have the gift of awareness. With more neurons like universes within rearranging continuously, infinite possible combinations, electricity, life moving through you, shifting and interconnecting in every moment with every interaction, even with every boring repetition at your work. You can't know where your life or your growth is going, what lies ahead. Which, as anyone knows whose future has suddenly disappeared, a loss of love or work or COVID, there's nothing like that physically anxiety-inducing sensation of not knowing the future, not knowing where you're going. And in that same thing, nothing more beautiful than the possibility of the unknown. That possibility, right inside the depths of that fear of not knowing, that's where truth is too, to find out. So if the goal isn't knowing, being safe for sure, or getting there, but simply to take fulfillment in your gift of self-awareness, to be yourself, to grow, to find yourself, to grow, to make yourself, to grow, to fail, to grow, to be surprised, to grow, to share, to grow, to encounter yourself out in the world in a constant process. This is freedom from the illusion that life is supposed to be about something other than the messy, real life you are living. This is the ultimate art form, cultivating yourself. This is why art is always changing the world, because every art is a reference, a reminder, an interchange, an inspiration towards that universal creative act, the one we are all inextricably intertwined in together, the art of becoming. And the self is a construct of fluid, ever-changing truth, an experience that self-determines its own nature. It is a game that is impossible to win, so you can't lose. So, what does this mean, practically? We all live in fear of self. We can't see ourselves. A child early on gets a sense of good kids and bad kids, and what am I? Am I good or bad? That never leaves because we never see. Like the ocean, we only see fragments. We look out the window at other houses and wonder what we are, when they only see the outside that we'll never see, and no one else will ever see the inside we know. So this fear of self will forever drive you, of not being enough, of not quite being what we want, of not being worthy. I've come to accept that I want this drive in me, this human madness. Everyone feels this in their own way, which makes it okay to face. That drive can lead to some of the most beautiful human experiences. The less we pretend, the less we lie to each other about how much we have it all figured out, the more we inspire ourselves and others to reach with that wisdom that it is not the kind of reaching that is meant to get what it reaches for, but circle our ideals, cycling through time and learning as we go, the more we share, imperceptibly interconnecting. To share honestly the struggle we are in is one of the most valuable things we can do, whether with your closest confidant or stranger or the whole world, to know we are not alone, and to get a more realistic model of what is actually happening in the interplay between our minds and lives, expanding what is possible by understanding. Truth is not one fixed thing. It is all perspectives, all contradictions, all possibilities existing together. Truth is moving, the river of intertwined human perspectives, and you can move with it or resist it. Those who adapt thrive. Choose your own conscious evolution. You have the power to create sourceless sparks within. You have the power to encounter the unknown through others. You have the power to choose to see in new ways, to inspire yourself, to guide desire and adapt your own beliefs. It will mean countless leaps of faith. See, you can never see how much you give just by being you. So go find out what that can mean.